When we think about the future of medicine, it's so easy to just picture robots completely taking over the operating room. But what's actually happening when a surgeon partners up with a machine? Well, it's a story that's way more complex and, frankly, a lot more human than you'd ever guess. Okay, so let's just dive right in. The big question we're really digging into here is, what is this relationship, really? Is the robot just a super fancy scalpel, or is it more like a colleague? Or, and this is where it gets interesting, have we created something totally new? A true hybrid of human and machine.
All right, first things first, we have got to clear up a major misconception. It's one that's been fueled by, decades of science fiction.
We all have this picture in our heads, don't we? Some humanoid robot, totally calm and collected, performing surgery with absolute precision, while the human doctors just kind of stand around and watch. But the reality in today's ORs is completely different, and it reveals this fascinating psychological dance between people and the tech they use.
So let's get into what's really going on, because the most advanced surgical robot being used all over the world today, it's probably not what you're thinking.
The key thing to latch onto here is level 1 autonomy. What that means is the Da Vinci system has no mind of its own, zero. It cannot make a single move, not one tiny incision, without the surgeon's direct command. So think of it less like an independent surgeon and more like an unbelievably sophisticated remote control device that just happens to eliminate tremors and magnify the surgeon's own movements. Now, to manage this new reality, healthcare professionals have developed this mental strategy. Researchers call it strategic ignorance, and it's basically a conscious choice to downplay how sophisticated the robot is, to frame it as nothing more than a simple instrument. Now, this isn't about actually being ignorant. Oh no, it's a deliberate psychological move to keep the human firmly at the top of the food chain.
And boom, this quote just perfectly illustrates that mindset. This is from a nurse on a robotic surgery team, and it shows how they actively, put the robot in its place. It's not a colleague, it's a servant. It's there to do the bidding of its human masters, plain and simple.
This surgeon's comparison is just perfect. He's likening this multi-million-dollar, cutting-edge surgical robot to heavy construction equipment. By doing that, he's hammering home that same idea. I am the skilled operator, and this machine, it's just the tool that gets the job done. This is strategic ignorance in action, right there. But here, right here, is where the story takes this incredible turn. Because while the surgical team says the robot is just a tool, the surgeon who's actually controlling it, they feel something completely different. The line between the user and the instrument, it just starts to dissolve. Research uncovered this incredibly powerful psychological phenomenon they call avatarization. Think about it. The surgeon's hands are on the controls, but in their mind, they are inside the patient. They don't feel like they're driving a robot. They feel like the robot's arms are their arms. It becomes an extension of them. The technology is just so seamless that the surgeon's consciousness is literally transported. As one anesthesiologist, as Smoothie Sasu put it, it creates this unbelievable sense of immersion. It's a complete fusion of human expertise and robotic precision. You feel like you're right there.
And this is the crucial point. Because they feel the robot is part of them, there's absolutely no question of blaming the machine if something goes wrong. One surgeon put it bluntly, any mistake here would be the surgeon's fault. This feeling of avatarization means the human claims total, 100% ownership over every single action the robot takes.
Now, this deep, profound sense of fusion between human and machine, it doesn't just affect the surgeon. Oh no, it sends ripples out that change the dynamics of the entire operating room.
So, after spending hours and hours literally embodying this machine, surgeons, naturally start to feel like the robot is theirs. It's this personal, deep, psychological connection. But this feeling of personal ownership is about to crash headfirst into a much more complicated reality.
Because when you actually look at who owns the robot, it's not the surgeon, not at all. The hospital or the tech corporation owns the hardware, they pay for the upkeep, they assume the legal liability, and get this, they even own all the data it generates. So the surgeon feels like the master of this avatar, but in the real world, they're just using a very, very expensive piece of corporate equipment.
And yeah, this creates some real-world problems. The crazy high costs mean not every patient can get this surgery. The hospital becomes totally dependent on one company for proprietary parts that, and one nurse called this an important weakness, are actually designed to expire. On top of that, this intense focus on the surgeon-robot link can make other vital team members, the nurses and anesthesiologists, feel like their roles are being pushed to the side. So given this really complicated present, where the robot is part tool, part avatar, part corporate asset, what on earth does this tell us about the future?
Well, the professionals they interviewed for this research were pretty split. On one hand, you've got that sci-fi vision of fully autonomous AI surgeons, which, let's be clear, almost all of them thought was highly improbable anytime soon. And on the other hand, you have this much more skeptical vision, where robots are just used for simple, routine stuff, like a waiter robot delivering medication.
But there's a third vision, a more hopeful one. The original idea for surgical robots actually came from NASA. They wanted to operate on astronauts in space from a control room back on Earth. And that points to a future where this tech isn't about replacing doctors, but about projecting their skills across huge distances, bridging gaps in care and bringing top-tier surgical expertise to the most remote corners of the world. Ultimately, this whole journey into the world of robot surgery shows us the story isn't machine versus human. Not at all. It's about a partnership that's become so intimate that it literally challenges our definition of self. And it leaves us with this one really provocative question. When our tools become our bodies, where do we even begin to draw the line?